Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today is from Niagara Falls, New York. He's an independent pro wrestler, certified group fitness instructor, martial artist, and podcaster. He's been involved in martial arts for over 27 years and currently holds the rank of 5th degree black belt in the Chuck Norris System. He is the host of the Kick Pod and the Fit Fighter podcast. Also enjoys attending Comic Cons and cosplay. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. TJ Williams. How you doing today, sir?
Oh, wonderful Friday night, getting off of work and just relaxing, but actually being on this podcast.
Hey, it's always relaxing to talk martial arts, so...
Yeah.
It's always fun. Well, I know you said you've listened to a few episodes, so you kind of know how we get things going. I want to go back to the very beginning. I want to know where that first interest, that first spark came from that kicked off your martial arts journey.
Well, mostly I was just a kid, growing up in Niagara Falls. Let's just say I was on a mission. The one thing that kind of got me into martial arts is mostly watching like TV shows, mostly cartoon, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Nice.
I mean, that was like my main cartoon that I loved to watch, and it had like so interesting about martial arts and of course learning about what they do with ninjutsu. I still got those 2 VHSs they had in Burger King, because those like the only 2 episodes
Nice. That's awesome. I actually remember that. Nice.
Yeah, it's like I guess it was like around the time that they were advertising the movie. I believe it was like the 90s that they were doing that.
Yep.
And it's like I can remember the 2 episodes I had: Invasion of the Turtle Snatchers and The Great Boldini.
Nice. That is cool. I remember the Burger King thing, but I never got them. I never got any of the VHSs. So that's all good though. Nice. So and what age was that about?
Well, it was probably like around 4 years old that I was like into the cartoon.
Okay.
And I was into other movies as well. I think I remember like the one movie I used to watch was The Last Dragon.
Nice. That's a classic. I love that. That's my dream is to get Timac on the show. I'm hoping I can get him on here someday. He'd be fun to chat with, Bruce Leroy himself. Now, you said around 4 or 5, you got into the Ninja Turtles, got involved that way. So how long was it then before you actually got to start training in it yourself?
It wasn't until like around when I was 10 years old, like a day before my 11th birthday, I actually had my opportunity to train in a martial arts school pretty much near my hometown. So like from there, I actually started when I had a cold. I mean, I wasn't sick that bad, but that was, and when I first started, it was, I didn't get my total white uniform yet. And I was just in a t-shirt and jogging pants. So yeah.
Nice. I think they do that with a lot of kids. I remember my very first one when I was 10 in my Tung Sido class. I had camouflage sweatpants and the camouflage t-shirt. So that was, I think, my first like 2 weeks in Tung Sido class. So, and what style was that first system?
Before I kind of learned about this, it was the Chuck Norris system, or they would call it like back then when I started was Chung Do, which is hybrid martial arts, which is derives from Tang Soo Do. I mean, I wasn't even like concerned what the style was. I thought it was just Tang Soo Do or something, but I was just doing what I was taught.
Right.
But nevertheless, the style that I train in is, let's just say, it's the Chuck Norris system.
Right.
So that's the main style. I mean, before it was Chung Do, how Mr. Norris, or I like to call him Grandmaster Norris, because I hesitate to call him by his first name because that's just like a respect thing.
Right. At that age, at 10 years old, did you know who Chuck Norris was?
Oh yeah, I knew who he was because I'd seen the movie Sidekick. Because that's like the one Chuck Norris movie I've seen.
Love it.
And, and the hidden thing about that movie is like majority of the people that are in that movie were part of his organization called UFAF.
Yep.
And of course, so I was like looking for Easter eggs. It's like I've seen so many the guys that were in UFAF. Of course, I've seen them when I go to the annual convention that we usually have at July. So then I can usually catch them. Say I know that guy. I know this guy.
Okay. See, I was the same way when I saw the movie The Perfect Weapon. That's the movie that got me into American Kempo when I was a teenager. And I remember going to my first international tournament out in Long Beach. I'm like, hey, he was in the movie. He was in the movie. Hey, I know that guy. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's kind of cool. I've never trained in the Chuck Norris system, but I've interviewed a few of them guys, and I've met many over the years. So what was it then? Think back to that first class, maybe the first one or two classes. What was it about that instructor? What was it about that style? What kind of drew you in?
Definitely, but my instructor, of course, he still teaches today, and unfortunately, I'm definitely like 4 degrees ahead of him. I was hoping that he'd probably be the same rank, but he was definitely like a fun looking guy, and really, he was really entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely when I'm not talking about karate or anything, I'm talking about other like pop cultures.
Okay.
Like I would talk about pro wrestling, like around that time, that's where, you were either watching WWE or WCW. This was like late 1996. So he would definitely, me and him would be relating to like that sort of thing, or even cartoons or anime. But nevertheless, he was like the one instructor that really helped me get more interested in martial arts. I was so engaged in what he was teaching, and I would definitely not hesitate to go home and train on what I was taught. And then therefore, I was always prepared to test for like the next belt. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely it wasn't too much of a difficulty for me. So that was just the greatest thing that I would have. Definitely to think about my instructor today, he definitely helped me get the job that he works at. So basically I have like almost a bond with my first instructor.
Okay. It's good that you've been with him that long and still know him and still friends with him and stuff. That's always that's when you know it's a good instructor, when it lasts that long.
Yeah.
So then, do you remember your very first belt test? That's one question I've never really asked anyone. I always ask about the black belt test, but do you remember your very first color belt test?
Well, I know it was a gold belt test. I mean,
Okay.
Mostly they'll call it yellow or gold belt.
Yep.
I can't even remember it, but if I'm like clear with it, mostly if you're getting your first belt, it's the basics of what the martial arts like, strikes, blocks, and kicks. I know it's a short test because, usually you can get that test done within 30 minutes.
Right.
Unlike other tests, you like, say a black belt test, you're in there for 2 or 3 hours, depending on how many people test. But I know I still got my certificate because I always keep my certificates with me. So I got to go look at my certificates to see when the last time I tested.
Do you remember then, out of not counting black belt, what was your hardest test?
I'd probably say like when I was going for my third gut belt,
Okay.
or maybe my first gut belt, because that's like red belt. It's like usually, well, here's how it is in our school. It's like your original instructor, they test you from gold belt to about fourth gut. That's be like green belt with 2 red stripes. And then for the last 3 red belt tests, you end up getting tested by the grand or the master instructor. He usually does all the red belt tests. I say like the first gut red belt test was really tough because that's when we have to do all the katas that we did from gold belt to right where we're at now. And there's a lot of katas, and you talk about endurance. And really, if you're not like conditioned to do all the katas, and you're gonna get blown out. But luckily for me, the katas were done first over everything else. But if it was like doing kicks, blocks, and everything, I'd probably be tired out before I even get the katas.
And for his system, Dad, do you guys do board breaks for each belt level?
Oh no, we haven't done no board breaking. I mean, we actually practice like doing board breaking. He has like one of them like plastic.
The rebreakable.
Like, those. But yeah, occasionally if we like did like some like a tournament or we did like a demonstration, we would do board breaking. That's probably like the only time we do board breaking. But as far as like doing the next promotion, yeah, we don't do any board breaking.
And you mentioned tournaments. You got involved in the competition, I'm assuming, and kind of what belt level did that start at? And do you remember your first tournament?
I can like recall. I was I think either a blue belt. We had like an in-house tournament, and we had like katas and sparring. And like my very first tournament, I got first place in sparring.
Nice.
So Yeah.
That's kind of memorable.
Yeah.
My first tournament, I got my headgear kicked off. So you,
Oof.
you did a little better than I did. That's pretty good. And so do you still compete now, or is that not anymore?
I mostly like when we have our convention. Like I usually compete in like the competitions that we have. Normally, it's broken up to like seminars, competition, and of course demo competition.
Hmm.
But like other than that, I don't go to tournaments like I would used to
Right.
because yeah, I mean, I just kind of lost my interest in like going to compete in tournaments.
And then what belt level did you start getting involved in the teaching side of it?
I was like, say, probably before I got my third degree.
Okay.
I was like second degree. I didn't get much into teaching, but I was assisting. It's
Hmm.
like I had that fear to actually teach students. It's almost like that stage fright. Yeah, mostly because I grew up with ADHD,
Okay.
and mostly it's like it kind of kept me away from doing like teaching. I didn't have that confidence yet. Not that I didn't want to actually teach, but it
Hmm.
was just that lack of confidence.
And has that changed now?
Oh yeah, it has changed. I mean, like you do other stuff. Like I said, like I kind of took a break from martial arts to kind of get into pro wrestling,
Hmm.
and that kind of built my confidence up because the things that I get from wrestling, I kind of bring it into martial arts, and that's the same thing with getting the fitness. Whatever I bring from fitness, I put it in martial arts, and that helps me teach better, and that's pretty much where I build my confidence. And I definitely, when I teach these kids, I give them a show. I think of it as like a comedy act. I know I don't overdo it, but I just like make sure these kids know that I don't want to be too harsh on them, but they should still give me that same effort as I did when I started as a student.
What do you think has changed the most about your teaching style over the years?
I think the fact that I think the one thing that's changed is that I'm like more enthusiastic to go up there. I mean, there's no fear. I know what I'm going to do before I even get started.
And within the Chuck Norris system, do you guys do weapons training?
Probably, if I say probably around blue belt, the students are required to get a bow staff because we have a traditional bow staff kata that we learn. And also, when you get like close to black belt, we also do something called the standardized bow form, which is almost like a tricking version of a bow staff kata. And yet I don't teach this yet, but I'm starting to get like more familiar with the tafas because
Ah,
I started competing with the tafas like when the pandemic started kind
nice.
of dropping off. Yeah, so that's like a good weapon to work with.
That's my favorite weapon. When I was younger, it was nunchucks, but as I grew older, I started appreciating the tonfa more. I really do enjoy that weapon, and I've actually had my pair of tonfas for over 30 years, so they're reliable.
Yeah, no, the great thing about this, my master instructor, he was also he had like when he was cleaning up his office, he come across actually two PR-24s. He gave it to me to train with, and at least either build like muscle
Hmm.
for like the tapas. And just thinking that I have PR-24s, like I keep them in the house. I don't bring them with me.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
that's kind of cool because those. I mean, it's the same idea, but they're definitely a little different than a tonfa.
Yeah.
Cool. So what would you say your favorite weapon is?
Probably right now, like I say, my bow staff. When I think of bow staff, I think of Donatello. Yeah.
Nice. So have you listened to my interview yet? I interviewed Stephen Ho, who played Donatello in the two of the Ninja Turtle movies in the 90s.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
you might appreciate that one.
Yeah.
It was a fun interview because I met him at a tournament like 30 years ago, and yeah, I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, I'm a big fan. Would love to have you on the show, and he's like, sure, I'd love to. So yeah, we talked a little bit about him working with Vanilla Ice in Ninja Turtles 2 and stuff, and yeah, it's a fun interview.
Yeah.
So what is the black belt test like for the Chuck Norris system?
But when I actually did the black belt test, it kind of rapidly it gets modified. So when I did my black belt test, and like it started off with katas, and then went off to like doing techniques, and then we do something called one steps, where your attacker throws a punch at you, and you do like a combination of techniques,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there it's like we go into sparring, and then that be the end of the test. But now things have changed where we have to kind of incorporating like self-defense in the tests, like from stand-up self-defense to ground self-defense.
Oh,
And yeah, they basically give you a challenge. That's pretty much our black belt, pretty much the like how the black belt test is nowadays.
Okay. I'm assuming it's kind of the same as most systems where you have a certain amount of time you have to wait between each belt and like in between each level of black belt.
Yes, yeah, because usually you get your first degree, you have to wait 1 year, second degree, 2 years, third degree, 3 years, and then fourth degree, 4 years. So, yeah.
So have you ever got to actually test in front of Mr. Norris?
Well, here's the thing with our system, where you have like 4 physical tests. For our first degree, like nowadays, you get to test in your own school. We have certain black belts that are like more experienced with martial arts, so they have them as the testing board, right? And then for second and higher, we're broken up into regions. Our organization of UFAF. I'm in Region 8, so we're broken up to New York, Boston, Massachusetts, and West Virginia. So for students pass their pre-tests from each of those schools, they're brought to like one location. Well, either it could be West Virginia, Boston, or even Niagara Falls. We have that one big test, second degree and higher. That's pretty much how it works there. So we have like 4 physical tests. And for the 5th degree, which I received in July, I wish Mr. Norris was there for it, but due to scheduling conflict, I mean, of course, we had another grandmaster do the ceremony.
Okay. So have you got to actually ever get to train with Chuck Norris directly at any of your seminars or conventions?
Actually, when I went to the convention for the first time in 2006, and it was at the Stardust Hotel before they tear it down, because it was like the first and last time that I got to be in that hotel. So he actually did a seminar. It was like a sparring type seminar where we were straight throwing techniques. So I was pretty much excited for that. And
Yeah.
I was kind of nervous too, because I was hoping that if I mess up, he'd probably be like, I don't know, angry about it. But I don't think he's pretty much a cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that from I've never met him. I used to go down to a tournament in Minneapolis every year, the Diamond Nationals. It's one of the NASCA sport tournaments. And the one year I didn't go was the year Chuck Norris went. And I was so mad when I found out, like, seriously? My friend got to meet him and stuff. And he actually said, I don't think I've ever told this on my show before, but he said they were in the hotel the Friday night after the competition. And it was like midnight, and they were teenage kids. They were running around and like knocking on people's doors and running away, as teenagers did in the early 90s. And he said they were running around and they came across the corner and Chuck Norris was standing right there. And they thought they were going to get in trouble. And Chuck looked at him, knocked on the door, and ran the other direction. So they were just left standing there. And I'm like, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
He said they stood there in shock because they didn't know what to do. And people came out and thought they did it. So yeah, I love that story. That's so cool. Have you ever got to do anything with the Kickstart program? I know that's really big in like Texas and stuff. Has it made its way up north at all?
Not exactly, but however, we usually have like our local tournaments, and we usually do something called the Kickathon, and we raise money for that organization.
Nice.
So that's like something that we do for the Kickstart. I wish we still do it, but it's like since the pandemic dropped, It's like just like crazy.
Do you know anyone in your area ever tried to get that going in New York and tried to get it into the school system?
Not that I know of, but I never really usually pay attention to other schools out there, but I know schools like do a lot of tournaments, then usually I'd like to check them out one day, but it's just I'm booked pretty much sometimes. Yeah.
Oh, no, I get that. So in your opinion, do you think we'll ever see martial arts in the public school system fully?
Man, that's kind of hard to say, but with things going on nowadays, how kids are, you want them to be well disciplined as well as well behaved. And the thing with martial arts and school systems, I mean, one thing you got to be careful. You don't want them to think it's okay to actually beat up anybody who like gives you a hard time.
Right.
But nevertheless, it's like it's more like it should be conditioning. So that's what I think that it should go for, other than just like not taking over a phys ed class, but something that teaches them about conditioning and like how to handle your body. Okay.
I'd love to see it. My whole thing is it's so dependent on finding the right instructor, and that's so hard to control, because you got to know the person's going to be good, and especially going to be good with kids. And that's, there's a lot of great instructors, but not all great instructors are good at teaching kids either. That teaching kids takes something special. to be in the public school system, you'd have to have that right instructor. So, because I've had a run in with a few bad instructors over the years, and you definitely don't want that happening for you. So
When I think about that, of course, there was an instructor as I was training. I mean, he was just like a nightmare.
oh,
And that got to the point where he was taking a second degree black belt test, and he got so cocky that, of course, he got kicked out of our like organizations, kicked out of school.
man.
But here's definitely a kicker, a nightmare. He ends up coming back years later as here I am an instructor, but yet he signs his son up to take lessons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that didn't even last more than a year. So, I mean, I kind of feel sorry for his son because his son was really good because I was just like training him, but yet his father that used to train, of course, he hasn't been training for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, me and my master instructor was really leery of him because, definitely we don't know how much he changed after those years. But, I kind of kept it cool and just kind of be myself. You kind of have to almost give that person a second chance. You never know what that person going through
Right.
until you really kind of know what's going on.
Talk a little bit about the pro wrestling, kind of how that came to be, and how you think your martial arts helped with that.
It's almost about 10 years I started training in wrestling. And it's pretty much after I was like dismayed that I failed my third degree black belt pre-test. Like before you actually take the black belt test, you have to take a pre-test. And, I was like kind of making like a goal for myself. I say, if I pass my third degree black belt test, I'll start training wrestling. But in this case, I didn't pass my pre-test. So I end up training in wrestling anyway to kind of get away from karate for a while. Well, not completely, just kind of boost my confidence. So here I am, like going to his wrestling school across the border in Canada, not too far from the border. And when I started training, all I did was bumps. That's like my first few training session, just learn how to fall and how to brace my fall. So that was the first session. Then it goes on to learn how to lock up with your opponents and put on holds. And then from there, learn how to run the ropes, how to take certain moves with the bumps. And then from there, I just gotten into practice matches.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, just like once my trainer felt I was comfortable doing matches, I'd go out and go to shows. Even though if I don't get booked, I help out, like help set up and like do whatever the promoter wants me to, and yet always bring my gear with me because you never know if that promoter wants you to be in a match
Mm-hmm.
or say in a battle royal. I'm always ready. So that's pretty much my starting to wrestling.
Okay. And did you get to compete at all?
Yeah, after my year of training, I've had my first match in Oshawa, Ontario.
Okay.
And the fun thing about it is I ended up wrestling like twice back to back.
Oh, wow.
I did like a singles match, won by disqualification, and of course I got put into like a 6-man tag, which was like a hardcore match.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean, you got all these guys hitting each other with chairs, fiberglass, and all this stuff, and yet I get hit with plastic Tupperware.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So did you have a cool wrestling name, or did they not do that in that league?
Well, I kind of came up with like a simple name. I call myself TJ Karts.
Okay.
Like I used my first name TJ, and then the Karts that came from when I was a kart associate. I kind of blended with Mario Kart because Mario Kart was spelled with a K,
Yep.
and that I just kind of put KARTZ, so TJ Karts.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. And then what about the group fitness? How long you been doing that? And do you ever get to incorporate any martial arts with the group fitness that you do?
Well, yeah, actually, it's been 7 years since I've been a fitness instructor, and I actually started off teaching a class called Body Combat. It's like a Les Mills program. It's
Nice.
actually a martial arts based exercise program. When I first actually took the class, I got so into it, and then it was like I had to get into this. And you know how you get those look from people that when they see you doing so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they pretty much complimented me so much that they asked me if I was going to be an instructor. I kind of thought about it a couple times, I'm just because mostly when I was in the gym, I went hard. Definitely when I was just kind of starting off, I like using the elliptical because it's always low impact.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a treadmill. And I got so good doing the elliptical that I kind of set up a record for myself being on there for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
So I had that motivation. It's like that's the thing that it's great about that, having ADHD, the whole thing, I was very hyperactive. When you're hyperactive, it's that motivation that helps you keep going. And with that, I was doing body combat for a while. And then when the gym that I was working at got sold to Crunch, I had to get a sort of AFA instructor certification, which was a pain because it felt like I was going back to school. It's like they had to give you like a self-taught course. And then once you were ready, you had to take an online test, which was multiple choice, luckily. And then, of course, I passed. And then from there, I got my certification. And then I was had to teach the Crunch brand classes. And luckily, they had a class that it was called Cardio Thai Box. So that was similar to like body combat.
Okay.
So I stuck with that.
You talk about the elliptical. When I was training for my black belt, I thought I was doing good, but I don't think I ever did 2.5 hours. I know for about 2 straight months, I was doing 65 minutes, 7 days a week for 9 miles. 2.5, man. That's a goal to shoot for. I might have to try to do that maybe by next summer. And so that 2.5 hours, were you going like pretty much hardcore for the full 2.5 hours?
Well, I guess the elliptical go for an hour. So, I went for an hour and then I reset and then go for another hour.
Okay.
I didn't put no resistance on the elliptical. I was just going real fast.
Okay.
And I know I got people looking like next to me. It's like, what, man, you must be like some kind of robot or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got that look when I was doing 65 minutes. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
What made you decide to take the leap into podcasting and which podcast came first?
I went to this PodCon was one of my friends that actually does podcasting. He actually came up with this podcast group called the Podcast Precinct, and he had like this whole PodCon like for podcasters. And I kind of looked and checked it out, and then there was like a seminar for how to start your own podcast. I'm just listening to it, and then it's like they tell you like what to do, what to get. It didn't seem much like a difficult. Basically, you're just talking about what's on your mind. It's like you're not expecting everybody to care what you say, but it's worth really give your 2 cents in for like what's on your minds and what came first. I always like taking notes and see what I can talk about. There's so many things that I'm very good at talking about, but yet the first thing that came was the Kick Pod, which is a martial arts based podcast, because one night, of course, I'm a black belt in martial arts, and I have extensive knowledge of kind of analyzing certain subjects, and even I talk about movies that I've watched, and I kind of rewatch them and analyze what I see, and kind of talk about in the podcast. And usually, nowadays I try to get enough guests on the show. It's kind of hit and miss with getting guests, but when I talk to guests, that seems like a lot easy going than try to come up with subjects for the podcast.
Yeah. All props to you for just doing it by yourself sometimes. I've worked in radio for over 30 years, and that was always the hardest thing when no one else there, just you doing unless it's like a music one, that's different where you're just introducing songs, but to actually fill time on a topic by yourself, that's impressive. It's not easy to do. So it's definitely much easier to talk to another person like we're doing now. Who's some of your favorite guests you've had so far? I see some good ones on here.
Probably the one guest that I enjoyed the most, because I was pretty much lucky that I actually had the opportunity to interview, was Chris Kazamaza.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, I was commending him on his performance with in Mortal Kombat. And it was like, that was like my most favorite scene from that movie. It's like, did a good job, definitely. The funny thing about Chris, he was in Vegas the same time I was in like July, and I was like telling him I was actually going to be there, but I was going to be in another hotel, and I didn't get a chance to actually come see him because I was so busy with the convention.
Okay, he's such a nice guy. Yeah. I interviewed him earlier this year, but I met him at a tournament like 30 some years ago. And yeah, just such a nice guy, easy to talk to. We've had a few of the same guests. You had Andrea Harkins on. She's such a sweetheart, such a good interview. Yeah. So who's one of your dream guests? Who's someone you just love to have on the show?
Right now, I mean, I got two that I probably would like. I like to have Michael J. White and possibly Grandmaster Norris.
If you get either one, I'll definitely be tuning in. They'd both be fun ones to listen to. They're on my list too, so I got a few other ones that are on my list, but yeah, they're definitely up there. It's a lot of times it's just asking, you know. A lot of mine,
Yeah.
I've just reached them through social media and they've said yes, and you know, I've had interviewed quite a few of Chuck Norris's friends. You know, I've been lucky with that, and it's good though. It is definitely a lot of fun. So, how often do you release the episodes?
Usually, yeah, I do a pre-recorded episode, and then of course, usually like due to kind of like my busy schedule, usually I have them like every other week,
Okay.
or like sometimes I have them like once a month. So that's pretty much how I do my podcast.
Okay. So do
Yeah.
you have one coming up soon that we can talk about? Obviously, it'll probably be out by the time this show airs, but what's your next one coming out?
I actually interviewed a young lady that I met in the convention, and she's like highly into martial arts, and she was like a total fan of Chuck Norris, and yeah, she I'm the reason that she ended up getting a picture with Chuck Norris, because
Nice.
you know, that was like the first time she went to the convention, and of course the second time she had to buy the photo op.
Yeah, that's fun. That's always good to help people like that and you know, get them excited. And then what about the fit? Was it the Fit Fighter? Is that the other one?
Yeah.
And when did that one start? And talk a little bit about that one too.
Yeah, I think I kind of started that like around 2022. Yeah, it's like I was like kind of like I know I had like a plenty of fitness friends that are in the fitness, you know. I kind of reached out to them as well as reaching out to other fitness instructors that I didn't know, or even people that are on a fitness journey. And you know, I kind of talked to them and asked like what's the purpose of your fitness journey, and like what was your inspiration. And pretty much that's me learning how to getting better with fitness, kind of like an idea of like how to do like better fitness classes, or even kind of come up with a fitness like routine.
And how often does that one come out?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing, back and forth.
Okay.
With you know, usually it's one week the kick pod, the other week is the fit fighter.
Curious, what are your thoughts on MMA and the UFC? And is that something you're a fan of?
Yeah, I haven't watched much of the UFC of MMA or the MMA. You know, I'm not into like people beating each other up,
Okay.
but yeah. But I could say it's like almost similar to wrestling if I watch it carefully.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in your 27 years of martial arts, is there one philosophy you've learned that is at the top of your list, super important to you? You keep coming back to it?
It's never too late to learn. The one philosophy that I always learned, I mean, even if you don't test physically, you always are learning. You know, you're always the student. I mean, I may be at the highest level right now at master rank, but I'm still willing to learn. And it's not just my style, but, you know, I'm usually going out there and like with these podcasts, you know, I kind of learn what other styles are like.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I kind of come across other styles like you know, there's Shotokan that has similar katas that are equivalent to ours.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I try to go out to like seminars and that kind of do different martial arts styles and learn how can I incorporate this into my teachings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so yeah.
So what are some of the other styles you've checked out, like seminar wise, and done some cross training in like that?
Well, with our style, we're kind of incorporating like Krav Maga as well as Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Nice.
So that's like one or two styles that kind of interest me. Well, you know, with Krav Maga, I know that's like the most expensive like style to even get to. You know, you're looking at spending a lot of money just to learn the Israel type martial arts. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you know, we have like a guy from Texas that is willing to work with us instructors every Tuesday night on Zoom. And he's like teaching us like different ways to get from mount position, and pretty much any position, like basic self-defense.
Okay. You know, Mr. Norris, that's something he's been, because he's been friends with the Machado brothers since the late 80s. So he's been incorporating, you know, jiu-jitsu into his stuff since the late 80s, early 90s. So it makes perfect sense that you guys are doing it in your system too.
Yeah.
All right. So a few fun questions here. Who are 3, 4, 5 names you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Let's see. Okay, one would be Chuck Norris.
Obviously.
Bruce Lee.
Nice.
Jackie Chan.
Very cool. I like that.
I'm trying to think of another person. It's like so many people.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough question.
Yeah, so I got 3 of them. So
Yep.
yeah,
Three's good. I mean, if you can't think of any more, three's a good number.
yeah.
How about a favorite martial arts book?
Martial arts book. Well, I know it was at this one martial arts book. It was I think that's like the facts of Chuck Norris. It's like either
The
it's like the
jokes.
fun
Yep.
facts of Chuck Norris. I think it was like 100 like facts of Chuck Norris, and it's like it tells you like it's like certain like Chuck Norris facts or whatever like jokes or something,
Yep.
and then it's like tells a story after that, and this tells like what this joke kind of relates of what Mr. Norris was doing. So
Yeah.
I think one of us like he stopped like a game war from starting. Like I guess 2 gangs were ready to fight, and then Chuck Norris stand between them, and then it was just like mutual friendship or something.
Yeah, I've seen that book. It's actually the 400 facts about the world's greatest human, the truth about Chuck Norris. I think is what it's called.
Yeah,
That's a fun book. Those are hilarious. And I know when those first came out, everyone's like, "Oh, Chuck's not going to like this," and everyone says he loves those Chuck Norris jokes. He thinks they're the funniest things in the world, and he's got his favorites too. So it's kind of cool that he has a sense of humor like that.
yeah.
All right, how about a favorite martial arts video game?
Oh man, I got so many.
Okay.
Hey, there's just one or just I can pick many.
If you can pick a few, go ahead.
Well, I could say probably my top 2 would be Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
Nice. How about your favorite characters from each one?
I could say like Ken and Ryu from Street Fighter and
Nice.
Scorpion and Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. And here's a fun fact:
Mhm.
the actor that did the first 2 Mortal Kombat games.
Yep.
Yeah, I met like 2 of the actors from that movie or from that video game at a video game con.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when that first came out, I met at a martial arts tournament, actually met a few of them. And I've interviewed a few on my show. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. I've never been to a video game con. That might be a good place to get some possible guests for the show too. So that's good.
Yeah. Which ones do you meet?
So
Right.
Who did I meet? I know I met the guy who played Sub-Zero in the movie, and I think he played Shang Tsung in the video game. Philip On. Dr. Philip On. He's actually a doctor. He's got a book called Mortal Doctor.
Oh, I know the one, Shang Tsung.
Yep, Shang Tsung. Yep.
Yeah.
So he was a guest on my show. He's been on there, and yeah. He's like this tournament, the Diamond Nationals I used to go to from like 90 to 95. They had like all the people who were in the Mortal Kombat movies, the Mortal Kombat video games, the Ninja Turtle movies, WMAC Masters. I've met most of those people who were involved in those shows, and a handful of the Power Rangers too. So.
Yeah, speaking of Power Rangers, I met like majority of the Power Rangers, especially Jason David Frank before he died. Yeah.
Wow, I was in the process of working to get him on the show before he passed away, unfortunately. I was so hoping to get him on my show and interview him and stuff, and yeah, it was so tragic. Such a nice person. I got to chat with him once or twice, never actually got to meet him though. All right, how about a favorite martial arts TV show?
Favorite martial arts TV show. I'll probably say Cobra Kai.
Nice. Cobra Kai fan. I like it. Okay.
Yep.
I would have guessed you would have said Walker, Texas Ranger because of the Chuck Norris connection, but I'm impressed you said Cobra Kai. I like it.
Yeah, I like Walker, Texas Ranger too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good thing it's on Peacock. I can watch all the episodes.
Yes, I know. I've been rewatching it too because a few of my guests have been in some episodes of that too. So it's fun to go back and watch their episodes before I interview them and stuff.
That's another fun thing about that show, Walker, Texas Ranger. I ended up almost meeting every celebrity that made a guest star in that movie or that TV show.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's how you reach out to them, get them on your show then.
Yeah, it's funny when I go to the cons and I see the actual actors that was on that show. I actually tell them I know Chuck Norris, and then I show them a picture, and then it's like, oh wow, yeah.
That's really cool. All right, how about a favorite martial arts movie?
Well, hands down, I have to say Mortal Kombat because I've watched that so many times.
Nice. That one's actually surprising, not pick as often as I thought it would be. A lot of people pick Enter the Dragon, things like that, but Mortal Kombat should be picked more. It's a great, the original one. It's such a good one.
Yeah, I didn't like the sequel very much, Annihilation.
Yeah, it was okay, but it just wasn't as good as the first one.
Yeah.
Now, this one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie, just a favorite movie fight scene.
Well, hands down, Scorpion versus Johnny Cage.
Nice. I actually had someone pick, you had mentioned Sidekick before. I actually had someone pick the fight between Chuck Norris and Joe Piscopo at the end of that as their favorite fight scene, which I could watch that probably 100 times in one day and laugh just as hard every time. Such a fun scene. That's one movie I never get sick of. I watch it at least once a year. So, but yeah, and same with Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat, I haven't watched it probably in about a year, but I usually, that's another one. I got about 15, 20 movies, classic movies that I'll dig out and I watch about once a year. And I never get sick of them. Karate Kid's on that list. Usually Mortal Kombat, Bloodsport, Best of the Best. So
Bloodsport.
So I'm just looking through your episode list, talking about some of your movies and stuff, like the movies you talk about. Kind of cool. So what type of stuff specifically, like you say you kind of like break it down and analyze stuff on some of these movies? What are you looking for when you're doing that?
I'm looking for like if you were in a self-defense situation, you wouldn't do this, or you do this differently, or I would relate to like something I see in a movie, like what I do in class. I would talk about in class, like really or basically if we're talking about sparring, I would say, this is how you go for your points. It's like, this is how you go for points. You close the gap this way.
So you're analyzing it more from an instructor point of view instead of a fan point of view. That's kind of cool.
Well, sort of for kind of like half and half.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you analyze some of the fight scenes in Cobra Kai from a self-defense point of view?
Well, there'd be like the do's and don'ts of how to teach people self-defense.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't talk about strike first, strike hard, no mercy. I mean, you got to at least show your opponent some mercy. At least let them make a statement of how you want to be treated. And, well, definitely look at it this way. You don't want to beat your opponent up to the point they're in the hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. I'm excited for the final season. Hopefully we'll get to see it in 2024 now that the strike's over. Hopefully they can start filming and we'll get our final season of Cobra Kai. Kind of sad it's the final one, but I'm looking forward to closing out the story for that.
Yeah, I'm trying to at least get a collection of it. So, like, so far I've met 4 people from, like, Cobra Kai and Karate Kid.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've interviewed two or three people that were in three people that were in the original Karate Kid movies. And I've interviewed one person that was in Cobra Kai, and then one person who did some of the martial arts training for Cobra Kai. I'm trying to get, like Ralph Macchio or William Zabka on this show, but obviously, you got to go through agents and managers and stuff. And it's definitely not as easy to reach out those people, but yeah. I've been lucky. I had, if you're a Karate Kid fan, I had Sean Kanan, who played Mike Barnes.
Oh
yeah. He was one of my first like 30 or so guests when I first started the show. So super, super nice guy. And at the time, he didn't know. He might have known, but he specifically told me I couldn't ask him about Cobra Kai. So I had a feeling maybe he was going to be on it, so we couldn't really talk about it. Yeah, and as soon as I saw him on that episode, I texted him, and he responded back, and he was like, Mike effing Barnes. So I think he had fun with that. So I'm hoping we see him on the next season too. Well, anything before I let you go, anything maybe that we didn't cover or I forgot to ask you about, I want to make sure, any information you want out there and stuff.
Yeah, I know I mentioned like the Comic-Cons I go to, cosplay. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So who's some of your favorite characters to dress up as?
My main character is Mario. So yeah, I do a nice Mario impersonation.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. So have you ever dressed up as any like the Mortal Kombat characters or anything?
That's next on the list.
Okay.
But, I dressed up as Ryu and Ken.
Okay.
So.
I like that. You'll have to send me some pictures of some of your cosplay. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, the last Comic-Con I went to, it was like Frightmare. And I was like dressing normal, and then all of a sudden, like this one guy was taking a picture of me, and I didn't know why. And that's like, why not? And then of course I ended up meeting the actors from the Walking Dead. It was the guy that played Abraham.
Okay.
It was like Michael Cutlet, and he noticed that I looked like one of the characters, Tyrese. And that's like, I didn't think about it until I actually looked myself in the mirror. It's like, I'm dressed up as Tyreek. It's like, I was like, that's strange.
I've never been to one of those. I've always wanted to go to like a Comic-Con, or my daughter's been to a couple. I've never been to one. I think it'd be a blast to go to. We have some local ones. Actually, we had a local one here a few weeks ago I couldn't go to because I was working, but Adrian Paul, who I've interviewed on the show, was actually in town at a local Comic-Con, and I didn't get to go to it. So I was kind of bummed. But yeah. The only person I've ever been mistaken for, I've been mistaken for the guy, Rick from Pawn Stars. I was actually in Vegas at a voiceover convention, and someone thought I was Rick from Pawn Stars.
Oh
So
my God.
I had never seen the show before, so I didn't know. Then I looked at his picture, and I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it. So I should have pretended I was him. I like signed autographs and stuff, but I didn't. Would have been fun,
Yeah,
but
I get that a lot. People think I was 50 Cent.
hey, there you go. That'd be cool. Well, TJ, I got to thank you, man. This has been a blast. I love hearing your story and learning more about you, and definitely going to, promote both of your podcasts. We got, the Kick Pod and the Fit Fighter. I'll put links for both of them when the episode comes out, and people can, check it out and hear some of your analyzing and your interviews and stuff. And like I said, it's one of my goals is to have the host of every martial arts podcast on my show. Not going to be easy because more keep coming out, which is a good thing. So, but yeah, we got to support each other and help each other and stuff. So I definitely want to get that out there and get you more listeners. But I truly appreciate your time, and I can't wait till the episode comes out.
Yeah, I hope I can have you as a guest on my podcast one day.
We'll plan that sometime. We'll make it happen. We'll chat about whatever you want to.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.